Happy Wednesday, Valerie Hunt, Run RX, Ask Me Anything. So I got a great question this morning, and by the way, if you come on and have a question, feel free to post it. I have my glasses so I can see. All right, so the first question I got today, which was a really nice, was well put, I should say. So I totally recognize that there is so much information out there, and most of us as runners usually go looking for a running plan if we decide to sign up for an event, right? I'm doing the Couch to 5K, or I'm doing my first marathon. So generally it's like I'm going to do a training plan, right? That's what we're so used to, is looking and seeing. And then the training plan comes and it tells you how many miles to run, and go out and run, and go get you some shoes maybe, get a good watch, a good everything, get all the gear, right? Well, and so then what happens for most people is they go out and it's not quite as easy as it looks, or I'm struggling with my running. And generally we start to look for answers in stretching. We start to look for answers, of course, in shoes, like I said. Or maybe I go to a PT or a chiro and they say, well, you know, you have really tight hips, or you have tight calves, or whatever the imbalance in your body may be. So we're all out there kind of trying to figure out this running thing, right? And then I come in and I'm like, no, you don't have to do anything but learn how to run. You have to do the stretches, and you have to do this, the strength work and all that. But first, what is running? And so someone yesterday said, you know, it's really challenging because I watch your videos and I'm trying what you say, but every time I go somewhere else, I'm hearing a different message. So I respect everyone that comes on and at least listens or gives it a go. You know, so one of the things I can say is, one, I didn't invent what I'm teaching. I certainly did invent running. And I teach what's called posed method of running. And I will talk about what that is in a second. And I've been now coaching for over 20 years. I started with I bought the book initially, and when I started training for triathlons in 1999. So that's when I was first introduced to the concept of learning how to run. And I had already run distance running. I just signed up for triathlons, but I wasn't just running, I was training other people. And so all of a sudden I realized, wow, you trying to help other people with something you don't really even know about. Does that make sense? Like, I was a fitness instructor, I'm a personal trainer, I got certifications and all of it. And you know, you go and you learn about how to make sure you're training someone correctly, doing all the movements correctly. And yet when we go running, we just kind of go, hey, let's put some shoes on, I'll meet you outside, and here we go. Maybe today we'll run hills, and maybe today we'll do speed work and whatever, but we're just running, and we all accept that we're running. So especially getting into something like triathlon, everyone's like, oh, you got to get fitted for your bike. And my first bike was an old mountain bike with a kickstand on it. People were like, you got a bike with a kickstand. I mean, this is how new I was. This is a long time ago, but still. So they were like, you got to get fitted for your bike. I'd never even heard of that before. The people that do triathlon, they wouldn't ride a bike if it wasn't fit, right? If it didn't make sense for them to sit on this bike for hours and hours and hours and pedal. So one of the things that happens with shoes and running is we think, well, we just need to get a shoe that fits. And once I have a good shoe that fits, I should be able to go out my door and go running. Everyone else is doing it. My whole life I've been told, go running, never how. So I understand that listening to that, kind of that thought even of what is running and thinking about my movement, then it can sound, one, complicated, because running is supposed to be so rewarding and relaxing, and the one thing I can do without having to put all this, you know, thought into it. But the reality is running is the best mental thing you can do and physical for your body. One, it's using all of your muscles, all 600 muscles, but especially your brain. And that connection with running is so exciting. So one of the things to keep in mind is I'm definitely wanting to add to the joy of your run. And my whole thing is run pain-free. Most people don't talk to me until they hurt. And by then they've heard so many things. You should stretch, you have tight hips, you should get these shoes, you should use orthotics. I mean, this is what I usually end up having conversations with. And then I always say, did your doctor or PT or chiro, did they watch you run? Just curious. Because if I went into the doctor and I was like, doc, every time I do a squat, my back hurts. And then they're like, well, show me your squat. And I'm like, oh, it looks like this. Well, they might be like, well, guess what, Valerie? You don't know how to squat. Let's just fix your squat and then your back won't hurt. You know what I mean? So with running, no one does that. You're like, oh, my knee hurts. And they're like, well, don't run. It hurts your knees, right? So here's what I want to talk to you about. Just the simplicity of running. Because yes, of course it's natural. And everyone has that ability to go out and run. The fun part of what we do with RunRx or pose method is kind of get you back to that natural state. But in order for us to get to that natural state, there has to be some practice, right? Because most of us haven't been out running every day for hours. We've been sitting, or even if we do other exercises. So here's something to keep in mind. This is really a fun thing. If you go back to what is running, and this is a fun question I ask in my running seminars, and I got this from Dr. Romanoff, and he would say, what is running? And people would say, putting one foot in front of the other was usually the top answer. Running is my freedom. Running is, traveling. Running is getting out and moving. But no one would answer the question of what's the movement? What are you actually doing when you run? What is your intent of movement? Because most people, when they run, they're just thinking, I've got to get there, right? Or I've got to get to this distance. So something external is kind of driving the action. So what we see in most runners is actions and instead of reactions. Because if something's natural, right, then it just happens. It's natural. Isn't that cool? So if I'm out running and I'm trying to exert effort to make myself travel, right? Running's cardiovascular, so any exertion should be breath, should be breathing, not actually the action of the running. That's why when you see runners in the front, like these elite marathoners or whatever you watch running-wise, don't they look smooth? They're not like panting out of control. They look very effortless, really, and they're working really hard. So keep in mind that the effort is really in the holding of your body. Holding your body weight's the hardest part of running. So right now, just standing here, bend your knees. Okay, so a lot of us when we stand, we tend to lock the knee, so just bend the knee. That helps you to be in a natural state of movement. So it's called the ready state. So your knees are nice and bent. They always stay bent when you run. This is just their position to be in, bent. So the more you can think that when you're standing, just standing in general, it will help you in your run. In running itself, the body will fall forward. So every one of us falls. Everybody falls or we wouldn't be actually traveling at all. Here's the fun part. If my body falls and I respond by pulling my feet, I'm only pulling 2% of my body weight and I'm only using 10% active muscle contraction. But remember, all of my muscles are working. It's just what I control. So if you can get in the habit of just the simplicity of feeling that gravity does more work in running than I need to, let it do it. See, let your body fall, and it's a natural response of the hamstring to pull the foot. Isn't that cool? But now let's try that again, and I want you to lock the legs. So just extend the knees as much as you can. Really lock it out. Okay, now do the same thing and show me what happens. You fall forward and look, it's really awkward. Your foot couldn't pull because you had taken that ability out by extending the knee. See, that's an action that's unnecessary in running. So then we just don't do it. We just stay bent. So try that one more time. Leave the knees bent, let your body free fall, and just feel. See, it's a nice light pull. We don't have to teach our hamstring how to work. We have to learn to get out of the way of extra work. That's kind of the fun part. So I just kind of helped you feel that if you allow your body to fall forward, your feet will naturally pull. So isn't that cool? It's already natural for all of us. Gravity's free, and our hamstrings will pull. If you've ever had like a small dog or a child take your legs out, your foot pulls. It's a natural response. All right, so part one was just to sense that. So here's part two. What is pulling? Pulling is the opposite of pushing. Pushing is taking your foot and pressing, see? And then what did I just do? I just took that knee and extended it. So if I'm pushing, then unfortunately, I'm telling my body that I don't want to go this way, I'm telling my body I either want to go backwards or I want to go up. So if I was trying to, reach up here, right? Don't we all do this? We want to get taller. What do? We bend our knees and then we push to extend because I'm trying to go up. So it makes no sense to do that to go forward because pushing takes, my leg is going to go which way? Back. I just told my leg to go back and then I told my body to go up. We have to get away from pushing. So instead, the thought has to be, here's my foot and I pull it. So I sense my foot's on the ground, I get it off the ground. Pull the foot up from the ground. Hamstring does the work, ankle under hip. So in place, we have to practice that action. So it just becomes a normal reaction, a natural reaction in our run. Our hamstring already knows how to do this. It's us that's reconnecting with my knees stay bent, my hamstring pulls my foot. So you just practice that action. So you're always pulling to the pose. This is the running pose, the figure 4. This is the optimal pose for the body to fall and change support and be back in that pose again. So every time you get back to pose, your body knows, oh, I can fall and keep traveling because your body already knows. Here's the challenge. If I push, remember pushing is jumping. So if I start to free fall and I push, where'd my leg go? Behind me. So now I've got a 30-pound weight on my hamstring. And then you've got to go, ooh, to bring it back. So it's a muscular movement and it didn't take you forward, right? So pushing will help you for jumping, but for running, bent knees and pull. And it's so cool. You're using muscle elasticity, gravity, and about 10% active muscle contraction. So if you feel your calves when you're running, more than likely you are pushing, okay? But just so you know, pushing feels really powerful. So I know that people that do push, and I was a pusher. I did it all. I was a pusher, I reached, I was heel striking, all of it. I didn't know any better. But it feels powerful. You're like, I'm pushing. But you're not going anywhere. You're using a lot of work. Then your calves get really tired because calves don't want to push. In running, calves want to work for like 1/10 of a second, and that is it. And it's not anything you're doing. When the foot drops down, gravity brings my foot down. You see that pop up? The calves will work on their own, but if you put extra load on them, they're going to get tired. Just like any other muscle, right? If you go into a weight room and you add weight, you don't pick up 2 weights and do 1,500 reps. So running is about 1,500 reps. It's about 1,500 steps a mile. So if I'm pushing, it's like you're putting a 30-pound weight on that hamstring. Someone else said to me yesterday, not only do I read about pushing, but what about my knees? Leave them bent and then don't think about them again because your foot is what's connected to the ground. And honestly, you guys, the quicker you can change support when you run, the better. You want to get off the ground. Your knees are just a joint. So they don't have any muscles. They don't have any say in your movement. They respond to movement. Again, see, back to that response. You want to pull your foot. Where does my knee go? Well, when I'm running, my knee stays my knee stays connected to my thigh. But when your foot pulls, right, remember your body's traveling forward, so is your leg. So where will the knee go? It's going to go with your body, right? But the movement of the knee itself is a byproduct of you pulling the ankle up under the hip. You see, there's no action in the thigh and the knee stays down. See? Knee stays in the same spot. What's happening in the air is not our problem. We don't care. Whatever happens in flight happens in flight. We only have control when our foot's on the ground. So if you keep that in mind, and when you're running, up, 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 I promise your knee will be just fine because it's just responding to your movement. So it's really important when you stand here, you start to realize that, oh, this has nothing to do with my knee. I need to connect with my foot. Where's my foot? Where's my body weight? When you run, you can only respond to the ground, right? I can only control what happens right here. I can't control the air. Let it be free. That's the freedom of running. You have one job, and that is pulling. And the more you play with it, and you realize, oh, it's fun, fall, pull, and see you're back in pose. I call this catch the ankle. So here's my foot, kind of around my ankle, fall, catch. Right? I'm just putting myself back where I'm supposed to be. I don't worry about anything else. So then when you run, you've got to hold yourself up, keep yourself in that nice pose, and then let go. At some point, you got to just let go and see what happens. And then what the fun part is, the more you practice, the more it just becomes how you run. So when I go out for a run, this is kind of a fun thing too. It's okay to think. Like the best thing that you can do for yourself is think about your movement. Make sure your movement's good. Because then when you're running, you're running. Like if I'm running and I'm like, where's my fall point? Can I feel my fall? I'm pulling and then my pull is matching my fall. That is that zen and that zone and all that stuff people talk about they want to get into. And I'm like, it's right there for you. You just got to put some practice in. But your first step is your mind. Like if I can believe that, like I promise you that everyone has muscle elasticity. Everyone has the ability to fall. You start to think that for yourself and you're like, okay, maybe I'll do some of these strange drills. By the way, one of the best ways to get started is to go through the reboot on the YouTube. So RunRx YouTube has a 30-day reboot and it takes you through just the simplicity of the practice and into a rhythm of skill, strength, self-care. So I do believe in stretching, guys, and mobility and all that. I love strength exercises specific for running. So hip strength, foot strength, elasticity, right? And then getting greedy with gravity, learning to fall. And the practice, all the videos are like 2 to 3 minutes. It's very simple, just gives you a little bit of something to think about, something to practice. If you're hurting somewhere, something really doesn't feel right while you run, take the quiz on the website, runrxquiz.com, and it will give you a specific tip for that issue. So for some people, like their calves are really hurting, it'll help you learn how to not push and pull versus push, things like that. And then of course, you know, I'd love to see you run. So if you ever take it to that next step, then that would be going into the membership. But guys, seriously, the simplicity and the fun of the practice is, I'm telling you, I'm 22 years in now of practicing this, coaching this, doing it for myself, and the fun continues. Like for me, the joy of running continues. So I hope you give it a try and give me some feedback. If you guys are giving it a shot and it feels good, love to hear it. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. So please post questions and have a great week. Thank you.